Thank you. Good evening, Cornwall. I've just returned from the United States of America, where something quite remarkable is happening.
Welcome back to Britain Unfiltered, the channel that says what everyone else is too scared to. I'm going to cut straight to it today because what's happening inside Reform UK right now is nothing short of a full-blown implosion, and the mainstream media is barely scratching the surface of just how bad it's gotten for Nigel Farage. Now look, whether you love him or hate him, Farage has always had this image, the pint-in-hand man of the people, untouchable political street fighter, the guy who survived Brexit, survived UKIP collapsing, survived being written off more times than we can count. He built Reform UK from the ground up, dragged it into Parliament, made it the most talked-about political force in Britain. But here's the thing about building something on one man's personality. When that man starts losing control, the whole thing can unravel terrifyingly fast. And that is exactly what we're watching unfold right now. Let's talk about the internal chaos first, because this is where it really starts. Reform was supposed to be different. That was the whole pitch, wasn't it? No more career politicians, no more backroom deals, no more of the same old establishment rot that's been strangling this country for decades. Farage stood up and said, "We are going to change British politics forever." And millions of people, millions of ordinary, frustrated, fed-up British people believed him. They donated, they voted, they canvassed in the rain on a Saturday morning because they genuinely thought something was different this time. But what's been coming out of Reform UK recently tells a very different story. The party that promised to be the anti-establishment alternative has been looking increasingly like a mess of ego clashes, internal power struggles, and the kind of dysfunction that would make the Tories blush. Members falling out, candidates saying things that blow up in everyone's faces, spokespeople contradicting each other on live television, and at the center of all of it, Farage, trying to hold together a coalition that was always more fragile than it looked from the outside. Because here's what people forget about Reform. It surged, and it surged hard. But surge parties are incredibly difficult to manage. You get a massive influx of new members, new candidates, new energy, and not all of it is clean, not all of it is disciplined, some of it is downright chaotic. And when you're Nigel Farage and your entire brand is built on being the guy who cuts through the chaos, the moment your own house starts burning, people notice immediately. And they have noticed. The polling, which not long ago had Reform looking genuinely threatening to both Labour and the Conservatives, has started to wobble. The narrative has shifted. Instead of talking about Reform's policies, instead of the conversation being about immigration, about the cost of living, about NHS waiting lists, about all the things that actually got people through the door in the first place, the conversation is now about the party itself, about the infighting, about the embarrassments, about whether Farage actually has what it takes to lead a serious political operation, or whether he's essentially a brilliant campaigner who's completely out of his depth when it comes to governing and managing. That is a brutal question to have hanging over your head, and right now it is hanging very, very loudly. And let's be honest about something else here, because Britain Unfiltered doesn't do half-truths. Farage has always been a better rebel than a ruler. His entire career has been built on opposition, on being the outsider, the disruptor, the man rattling the cage. That works brilliantly when you're fighting from the fringes. But Reform is no longer on the fringes. They have MPs, they have a national profile, they have expectations placed on them by millions of voters who want results, not just rhetoric. And the transition from insurgent force to credible political party is one that has destroyed movements far bigger than Reform UK. Look at what happened to UKIP. Look at what happened to the SDP. Look at any number of parties that burned bright, captured the public imagination, and then collapsed under the weight of their own contradictions. History is absolutely littered with them. And the people inside Reform who are paying attention, the ones who've been around long enough to know how this story usually ends, they are worried. You can feel it in the briefings that keep leaking out. You can feel it in the way senior figures are starting to distance themselves ever so slightly from some of Farage's decisions. That kind of thing doesn't happen in a healthy political operation. That happens when people are quietly preparing for a change in direction. Now Farage will push back on all of this. He always does. And to be fair to the man, he's defied the odds before in ways that left everyone with egg on their face. He has been declared politically dead so many times that there's almost a dark comedy to it at this point. But this time feels different, and I'll tell you why. This time, the crisis isn't coming from outside. It's not the BBC gunning for him. It's not the establishment trying to shut him down. It's not some coordinated smear campaign from people who are terrified of what he...
This time, the wounds are self-inflicted. And self-inflicted wounds are always the hardest to recover from, because you can't blame anyone else for them. You can't point at the media. You can't point at the deep state. You can't say it's all a stitch-up. When your own people are the ones creating the chaos, when your own party's behavior is the story, you own every single bit of it. And right now, Farage owns a lot. The question that everyone in British politics is quietly asking, and I mean quietly because nobody wants to jinx it if they're a Labour or Tory strategist, because the last thing you want is to speak too soon about reform imploding. The question is whether this is a bump in the road or the beginning of the end of reform as a serious political project. Is this the moment where the wheels start to come off, or is this just another chapter in the Farage story that somehow, against all logic, ends with him coming out stronger? I genuinely don't know the answer, and anyone who tells you they do is lying to you. What I do know is this. The British public gave reform a chance because they were desperate for something real. They were tired of being lied to by politicians who said one thing and did another. They were tired of managed decline dressed up as competent governance. They wanted someone who'd actually fight for them. And if Reform UK squanders that trust, if it disappears into the same swamp of infighting and self-interest that swallowed every other alternative, then the real losers aren't Farage, they aren't the party donors, they aren't the Westminster commentators who'll just move on to the next story. The real losers are the millions of ordinary people who believed that this time, finally, something was going to be different. And that, more than any poll number, more than any internal party drama, is what should be keeping Nigel Farage up at night. That's it for today on Britain Unfiltered. If you think the mainstream media is burying this story, share this video right now, because someone needs to say it straight. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the